Okay, so first we have Kelly Motzko from Blue Raster. Kelly.
Hi guys, can you hear me? Good? Alright. Well, my name is Kelly, like you said. I'm from Blue Raster, and I've been working as an intern there this summer. And I've had the opportunity to work on a lot of really cool projects, but this one is one of my favorites. So I made a story map for the Jane Goodall Institute. And if you didn't already know, Jane Goodall was one of the plenary speakers at Esri User Conference this year. And my story map, not mine, it was a group effort. But this story map was able to be presented at the booth at UC. So that was really exciting for me. So I worked with the Jane Goodall Institute. I worked with the VP of Conservation Science, Lillian Pintea. He was really great in helping me gather data for maps, images, content. And the topic of the story map was their conservation approach, which is referred to as Tukare. So they work with local communities and help engage them and listen to them to understand their needs in order to help with conservation efforts. So specifically, the story map focuses on Tanzania and the chimpanzees in Tanzania. You can go to the next slide. There's no real order. This is the story map. You guys can check it out afterwards. Another great thing that I got to do was work with Alan Carroll, who's the founder of Story Maps team at Esri. And if you didn't know, the next generation of story maps just recently came out, so I got to work in that template. So yeah, overall, really incredible experience. Thank you to Blue Raster and all these amazing opportunities. And check out the story map.
Awesome, Kelly. Next we have Joe Nadonley. Joe.
Yeah, Joe. Hey, as he said, I'm Joe. Couldn't tell, also from Blue Raster. Had a great time there this summer. And I'm talking about drones, drone imagery, and what we're doing with that at Greenwood Cemetery, a little classification stuff too. To start, drone imagery is basically satellite imagery, which I'm sure many of you work with, but at a lower level. People prefer this because there's more control over data, timing, etc. This can help a bunch of different industries, talking agriculture, public gardens, golf courses, stuff like that. But we're going to focus tonight on public gardens and cemeteries, asset management, cataloging. There's lots of tombstones, monuments, plants, trees, all sorts of stuff to keep track of, especially if you have a large cemetery like Greenwood, which is 500 acres. Health evaluation is very important too, so we're monitoring turfgrass there, visitor navigation, to help people get around your cemetery. So, next slide. Greenwood's problem is that they have an invasive turfgrass which doesn't turn green until the summer, which is a huge problem for a cemetery. So what we did to try and address this is do some classification. So classification is basically grouping pixels or groups of pixels into class categories, kind of categorize them and better tell what you're working with. For this project, we did supervised classification and we did object-based classification because we were looking at patches of turf grass rather than individual grass types. This helps Greenwood because it determines the spread, the location, the conditions of this turf grass and how to eliminate it. So the workflow that we followed was using the relatively new image classification wizard from Esri in ArcGIS Pro. Started off with some imagery in Drone to Map, also from Esri. Stitched that together, georeferencing, orthorectification, all that good stuff. Brought it into the wizard, did some schema setting, and you can see that at the bottom right there. Apologize, it's a little blurry, but basically we took that imagery, we defined those classes right there, we told it what to look for, and then the classification result is in the bottom there. It ended up being about 70% accurate for the objects that we found. So it was especially good for identifying monuments. Struggled a little bit with the grass because we didn't have any NDVI near-infrared sensors. But that's something we're looking more into. We're really excited about this tool, and we're looking to research more about it. It takes a lot to understand something like this, but we're really excited about it. And I had a great time working with it and all the other projects that I worked on at Blue Raster this summer. Great to wrap it up by presenting here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And next we have Aida Ebrahimi from Creative Associates. Is that right?
Hello, everyone. My name is Aida. I was an intern. Okay. I was a GIS and photography intern at the Development Lab. The creative focuses on economic, education, growth, and also focuses on, well, for pulling it up, I'll just tell what creative does. We also focus on communities for transitioning to democracies. And so these three branches, there's a development lab which provides technical support, such as doing GIS, media training, and all that stuff. And I was the GIS intern. There we go. So, yeah. My main task was to create map templates that will speed up the process of map making for our great GIS manager. And we'll also create a uniform and harmonized look throughout the whole company. So as you can see, I created, 4 different types of templates using satellite imagery, hill shade, no hill shade, and also smaller 3x3-inch maps for proposals for a very quick reference. Aside from making these template maps for different countries, which ended up being more than 50 different maps, I also worked on a project focusing on Mozambique. And for that project, next slide, we had to show applet data, showing specific filtered applet data on the map. And I did one design on the right, was my first design, and I used rings to show a number of fatalities for that data, and talked to the designers. They were kind of not really into the map, so worked with the designers, worked with the client to see what they wanted, and we came up with the second design, which was the Hexbin, and that was much more appreciated because it was a lot easier to look at that, and also all the different article cartographics. That was it. Thank you.
Excellent job, Aida. So next we have Sue Ali from Youth Mappers. And a message to all interns, try to hold the mic still. It's very temperamental.
So I'm a part of the Youth Mapper internship. It was really exciting for me because I didn't know what OpenStreetMap was until last year. So for me, it was in a huge strides in learning from how to build like little building nodes and roads, and now I can like comfortably look at like farmland and do like mass portrait. So it's really good. For me, it went from like we only used OpenStreetMap when it gave us that ID editor, and then we made that step into using JOSM and GRASS. We had a presentation about QGIS, and it was just a lot of information that I can't wait to share with y'all when I get back to school. And the next part I learned that was really cool to me was how they explained validation to me. And it really served as a good reminder that like the community that I was exposed to was really nice. It was just so supportive, so wonderful, and I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. So next we have Eni Awowale. Eni.
Hi everyone, I'm Eni Awowale. I interned with the American Association of Geographers this summer. I worked on the project called the GDVE, which is a NSF granted project along with ICPSR and the University of Illinois Urbana. So we're basically trying to solve the issue of confidentiality in geospatial research. There are a lot of issues with in terms of keeping geospatial data confidential. So this virtual environment allows a user or a researcher to have a secure place where they can do geospatial analysis. The geospatial analysis includes like software tools like ArcMap, Geoda, QGIS, and a suite of other different geospatial tools. And also, you can't even, it's so secure that you can't even like take a screenshot of it. You can't like print the screen because it's a virtual environment and it's on a private server. And the second project I worked on was a departmental affinities project. So each year, the AAG collects information about the program affinities of universities. We've been collecting that information since 2012. So we were thinking of a way to like visualize that and a way that would allow people to easily sort of see the type of affinities different universities have. So as you can see, we grouped it into 6 different categories. So human geography, urban and economic geography, geospatial technologies. And basically, the more spread out a university is, like a university that has all these colors, for instance, Arizona State, they tend to be a little bit more all-encompassing, while a university like the University of Maryland is a little bit more specialized, and they focus more towards like the physical geography or geospatial technology side of things. So this is a really good way to have like university students, people who are looking to do research on programs and other different departments to easily see the departmental affinities. So yeah, that's what I worked on. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. Next, we have Drake Long from the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Drake?
Close my mouth. Yes. Cool. Hello, I'm Drake Long. I'm with the Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative at CSIS. We work on stuff like maritime security. We track fishing vessel routes throughout the South China Sea, for example. But what I'm going to talk about today is our current work mapping legal boundaries in the Pacific. So we're really well known for having a comprehensive map of all disputed boundaries and legal claims to boundaries among maritime states in the Pacific. Highly recommend checking it out on our website. What we're currently doing right now, what I've been working on a lot this summer, is expanding that to the South Pacific. So right here we have a snapshot of the Coral Sea. One of the boundaries that we've been working on is something called the limits of the continental shelf. I'm not sure many people realize this, but in 2009, one of the most important things in the world happened in the history of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. They finally it was the deadline for continental shelf submissions. Why is the continental shelf important? That determines what rights you have to the seabed beneath your country, beneath your exclusive economic zone. For most countries, the exclusive economic zone, the 200 nautical mile limit of their legal boundaries, is synonymous with the continental shelf. But now, the UN has taken in these extended continental shelf boundaries. So right here, you have the extended continental shelf for New Caledonia, which is a French colony. Some of you might support New Caledonian independence. Sorry, it hasn't happened yet. So anyway, why is this important? Because if you have access to a seabed, you have access to the minerals on that seabed. Are there a lot of minerals in the seabed? Nobody knows. Maybe. It's all speculative at this point. You could have oil rights to the seabed. Maybe. Nobody knows. It's all speculative at this point. But on top of that, all of these South Pacific countries get to rehash really old territorial disputes with all of their neighbors because now there's something else to fight over. Seabed. It's wonderful. In this image alone, you can see that New Caledonia, aka La France, is fighting with New Zealand, Vanuatu, and not really the Solomon Islands, but a little bit, on territory when it comes to the continental shelf. It's terrifying. So this is the actual line. Move, next slide. So how we're actually mapping it, it's a lot of work. So what we had to do is we had to find every single treaty, every single piece of national legislation, every single document that any state would submit that would purport to say what their limits are when it comes to their EEZ, when it comes to their continental shelf. For New Caledonia, it was somewhat easy. France is actually really bad at this stuff. They submit a lot of documents with missing pages in French language. It's awful. When they have a document like that, though, what we can do is we can use a service called Document Cloud and use optical character recognition to pull the numbers out of that document, and then we just slap them into Mapbox. Mapbox is the most intuitive thing ever. I love working with Mapbox. Google Earth, awful, terrible. But anyway, use optical character recognition to pull the numbers out of these documents. And for some of them, that's actually very important. A country like Samoa has like 50,000 pages worth of points. You do not want to put all of those coordinates into Mapbox at once. So when you do that, you finally figure out there's different treaty lines, there's different unilateral claims for the seabed, then there's the extended continental shelf claim. So I can't really point to anything, but the line in red is a treaty line with Australia that we pulled. That determines not only the economic zone, but also the continental shelf. We have a treaty line in green up top between the Solomon Islands in France, exclusive economic zone, continental shelf. To the south, in black, you see the extended continental shelf claim that France has made for New Caledonia. That's basically the extra stuff. That's what 2009 permitted a lot of countries to do. That's what France is hoping to get in terms of like materials, seabed resources, stuff such as that. There's a huge overlap with New Zealand, but that's okay. The UN said it was okay. So they haven't resolved it yet. But our goal throughout this entire time, oh, and I should say this, the white line is a median line. So Vanuatu does not recognize French claims on Matthew and Hunter Island, but France has recognized a median line between itself and Vanuatu. It's like a unilaterally recognized treaty that the other person that is a party to the treaty doesn't acknowledge. It's fascinating. So we use that using, QGIS. All you do is you put in the base points for each country. QGIS can generate median lines very, very easily. That's actually completely accurate for what those countries themselves put down in their official documents. It's wonderful. And we've been doing this for every single country in the South Pacific. And we just finished our first draft. So that's what I've been doing this summer.
Thank you very much, Callum. All right. Oh, Drake, yes, because Callum's next, so it's okay. All right, next we have Callum Wayman. He is from the NASA Develop Program. Yes.
All right. Yeah. Great. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, GeoDC, for having me. Appreciate it. So my name is Callum. This summer I work with the NASA Develop Program. Yeah. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about work that I've done with my team, the Ellicott City Disaster Team, and our collaboration with the Howard County Office of Emergency Management. So we worked in a city called Ellicott City. If any of you know about Maryland, you'll know that Ellicott City over the last few years has been devastated by major flooding. We've seen 2 1,000-year rain events in the past 3 years. So pretty terrible, you guys. So yeah, pretty terrible flooding over the last few years. And Ellicott City is here. Oh, okay. Well, on the left here, we're going to see a video. And I didn't think it was going to show. And here we go. You're going to see the 2018 flood. Yeah, it's pretty bad, you guys. So essentially during this flood, we had a 1,000-year rain event. And we saw cars and trucks basically getting swept down the main street of Ellicott City towards the Patapsco River. So we skip forward there. Thank you. So the Ellicott City, or the Howard County Office of Emergency Management, wanted to leverage NASA resources and also, oh no, stay back on that one. Thank you, Max, sorry. Wanted to leverage, NASA resources and also machine learning to see if they could improve their ability to predict flooding. Basically said, we don't really have a great method right now for flooding and knowing what environmental factors are causing that flooding. So here we have a little brain learning over time. That's what machine learning is. Now we can go to the next slide. And I'm going to show some data. Everybody loves data. So here on the left, there we go. For the data lovers in the back, amazing. So here on the left, we've got a plot showing basically just output that the model creates. We've got measured discharge in blue from an institute stream gauge in the Patapsco River at Gainesville. And then over the top of it is predicted discharge from our model. So basically we're hindcasting stream discharge from 2018 to mid-2019. So that's our testing data set. We trained the data using precipitation, soil moisture, and discharge data across 2016 through 2017. So you see here that we do a pretty good job of understanding base flow, and we get timing and the duration of stream flow increases pretty well, and the model underpredicts sort of the 2018 flood. Thank you. So on the right now, we see 2 plots. These are basically accuracy plots to explain how the model is doing. We see predicted discharge on the y-axis, discharge on the x-axis. You see when we use just precipitation to understand how flooding works, we do a really bad job. We got an R-squared of 0.2. And if you guys don't remember statistics, that's not good. 0 is real bad and 1's the best. And so you'll see when we add multiple inputs, Max, if you hit next, you see a beautiful, wow, look at that oval. That R square is looking real good, 0.93 there, that's much better. So when we use multiple inputs, leveraging precipitation and soil moisture from NASA data sets, as well as in-situ stream discharge data measurements, we're able to really improve our fit and improve the way that the model learns about how flooding works. But the other exciting thing is basically set up this model framework, so now future developers will be able to use other data sets like relative humidity and air temperature and things like that to better understand flooding. Thanks, that's it.
Thank you, Callum. Callum, great. I know your names. I swear, it's just a slip-up. Okay. Next we have Adele Birkenes going to talk about her internship with NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Adele?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Adele, and although I'm from the DC area, this summer I got to intern in beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii, which was amazing. Yeah, it was a struggle. But so I was with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, specifically with the Fisheries Science Center. And this was through the Ernest F. Holling Scholarship Program. And so I worked with the NOAA GeoPlatform, which is an ArcGIS Online based centralized repository and viewing platform for NOAA data. And so it's actually a pretty groundbreaking tool for NOAA scientists, since there are 6 science centers nationwide and NOAA operations in every U.S. state and territory. So it's pretty important, or it's a pretty important tool for scientists who are working across the U.S. But the problem where I worked is that a lot of the scientists have location-based data, but they don't have a background in GIS. So they're not comfortable with using the NOAA GeoPlatform. And so that's where my project came in. I worked on equipping scientists to use the GeoPlatform to map their data. And so I started out by meeting with scientists, learning about their data sets, and in particular, I worked with cetacean scientists, monk seal scientists, and sea turtle scientists. My first step was to design an application in Excel using Visual Basic for applications to clean their data sets and make them GIS compatible. And then I worked on automating other steps of the data upload process through GIS Model Builder and Python. And I worked on making sample web maps and apps on the GeoPlatform to showcase the potential of the platform to scientists who hadn't been exposed to much GIS. And some of the web maps and apps I made were time-based animations of monk seal sightings, sea turtle strandings, cetacean sightings, and locations of satellite-tagged cetaceans and turtles. Next slide. So the final component of my project was to consult with scientists at the center and figure out what data they wanted to see in relation to the data that they would be uploading. And so I compiled a bunch of layers relevant to marine research in a single web map, which you can see here. I had over 25 layers, most of them from NOAA and the Hawaii State GIS. And so this is going to be used also as a dashboard for science operations managers at NOAA so that they can track research cruises in real time in relation to these layers, which include weather imagery. So thank you.
Great presentation. Next we have Tania Velin from, my app just closed. From National Geographic. That's right, because she has it right there on her slide. So Tania from National Geographic, here you go.
Thanks guys. Hi, my name is Tania and I've been working with the Mapbox Department this summer with National Geographic. So a project I'm going to talk about that I designed a map for was for moon trees. So I guess how many of you know what a moon tree is? Raise your hand. You know what a moon tree is? Amazing, good. Okay, so what moon trees are they're these seeds that were brought on the Apollo 14 mission by smoke jumper Stuart Russo, right? And there's about 400 seeds that were brought. However, we were able to map about 60 of them in our map that we created. So we were working with existing data that was on the NASA website. However, my role in this initial was to collect some data, which would be going out, I saw some sources, and I found specific coordinates or rational coordinates of where these are located. And when I plotted these coordinates using GIS, I was asking questions. So questions related to where are these moon trees located? Where are the species? Where are these species located? And most of them were relative to the United States, but it was very hard to find locations related to outside of the U.S. Collaboration was, as an intern at National Geographic, was a really huge step. So a lot of my role as an intern was working with the maps editor as we were working together and putting the maps together, and also working with the text editor because the story was going to end up being in an article that was published online. So it's actually, the article was published on July 8th as part of the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. So we had a time limit on that. Crafting and polishing, so we had to make decisions on whether or not we wanted the map static or interactive, and how, as part of designing the map, how would that be executed, and how much information could it show. So we can go to the next slide if you want. So this is the outcomes of the moon tree map that I worked with Riley, who's a maps editor, as well as Catherine. So this shows, was part of designing the icons of the type of locations, as you see, dispersed around the United States, as well as some quick facts about some of the locations that are there in. We also had to design the map related to the mobile platform. So that was also a challenge of removing information, but also having the same layers of information in the big map in a smaller graphic. So the little bar graph, I guess you can see on that pane over there, shows basically the types of locations and the species that we would see in the big map. So I had a really great summer interning at National Geographic. I'm actually having a graphic design background. However, I was learning map tools and editing maps, and that was really, really great. So I'm really glad to talk here, but thank you, everyone.
Great presentation. Folks in the back who are chatty, we just have a few more presentations left, and then you can talk all you want. Okay, we have next Carlotta Esposito, also from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, who's going to give us, CSIS is really representing tonight, along with the rest. She's going to give us an excellent presentation. Carlotta?
Thank you. So, yeah, I'm working at CSIS, working on the Reconnected Asia project. And so so this is looking at Chinese Belt and Road Initiative projects in disputed territories. And so the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative is a massive foreign policy infrastructure initiative spanning multiple continents and investing billions in basically all types of infrastructure. So in this map, I analyzed the Belt and Road Initiative projects in disputed territories. So this is significant because disputed territories are something which more than one state holds a claim economically, socially, geopolitically to the land at stake. And as you can see in the map, the predominant projects are in areas. In Arunachal Pradesh and Jammu Kashmir, which are areas right by China. So that's definitely important. And then we also have a port and a large bridge at the Kerch Strait and by the Azov Sea, both with competing claims by Ukraine and Russia. So the problem with this data is because that it is, or benefit and kind of drawback, it's taken the World CIA factor. So these are actually disputed territories which are recognized and agreed upon by the U.S. So that does not include active separatism and disputed territories not recognized by the U.S. So, for example, Balochistan is a large area in Pakistan, which is not quote-unquote disputed territory, but there is a large active separatist group believing that Balochistan should be an independent state. So this actually has occurred in multiple, or 3 terrorist attacks, or attacks on Chinese work groups that are building a large port, LNG terminal, and power plant in the area. Gwadar, which is a coast city in Balochistan. So further in this map, this is using mainly Google Earth Pro, ArcGIS Pro, and basically like public data. But I would like to move forward and include like separatist regions, kind of like active violent separatism, and kind of taking a look at what are the
aspects of risk to Belgian Road, but also kind of geopolitical parts of Belgian Road that definitely have roots in disputed territories. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carlotta. Excellent presentation. Next, we have Zach Slaney and Hannah Underhill from Dewberry. Okay, that's about that. I know there's more Dewberry people, so you got to go woo, do all that. So Zach and Hannah.
Hi, how's everyone doing? My name's Zach.
And I'm Hannah, and for the summer we spent the summer interning at Dewberry in Fairfax, Virginia. We got to work on a lot of really cool LiDAR and remote sensing projects. Specifically, this is our Fairfax LiDAR project, which is right in our back door, so it's really cool to work on that. Specifically, we worked on LiDAR, so we did identifying features and manipulating point cloud data sets in ARC. And we used a series of digital elevation models as well as intensity imagery. And we used the LAS dataset feature in ARC to find any unnatural features in the DEMS. And we're looking to classify points to ground, noise, and bridge. So the top picture is classification of a porch deck, and the picture on the right is of a bridge. And we're looking specifically for divots, porches, decks, and bridges and buildings. Our goal is to create a final bare earth model.
So once all the final edits have been made, a terrain dataset is then used to load the LAS file, which is the collection of LiDAR data points, into a geodatabase, referencing only the ground points. Now what this does is it creates a DEM, a digital elevation model, which you can see in these pictures, which is actually a bare earth model, which you can then run various simulations, models, and make analyses depending on what you want your end results to be. So for example, this DEM most likely is going to be used for flood mapping. Now what they're going to do is they're going to take the data within the DEM and couple that with flood models, flood simulations, in order to determine various flood indicators so that they can then assess the flood risk of this particular area. Now this is only one use of how, there's only one application that you can apply to a DEM to solve a human environment related issue, but with such a changing social and ecological landscape, having accurate data is extremely important for these models and simulations to have credibility and to get a good, accurate end result.
Zach and Hannah, thank you very much. Dewberry, representing. Next and last but not least, we have Ali Hardebeck from the Brookings Institution. Ali.
Hi, my name is Ali. I'm a research intern in the Metropolitan Policy Program at Brookings. And one thing I was working on this summer was taking a closer look at the 2020 presidential, some of the plans for addressing redlining and historical discrimination. So in order to do that, we wanted to produce shapefiles based on redlining maps. So redlining was one way that the federal government determined how to allocate resources as far as giving out mortgages. So the red areas on this map, I have Austin, Texas up here, are represented as hazardous and risky for lending. They just so happen to be predominantly black neighborhoods, which, as we know, is not an accident. So one way you can create a shapefile from these maps from the 1930s would be to georeference it in something like ArcMap, but I actually used a different tool. Go to the next slide. It's a JavaScript web app called Wicket, which is the onomatopoeia for web-based text, or well-known text, which is one way to represent geometric shapes and polygons. So the process for this is essentially using drag and drop tools. You can literally just select an area to create a polygon, and it will give you the string that represents the coordinates of the vertices of the polygon, which you can use to analyze. So, thank you.
So those are great presentations.